Let me start this one off by saying that I was not a great teenager, not in the criminal sense or anything like that. I was just one of those kids who thought everything his family did was embarrassing and beneath him. Looking back, I cringe at myself constantly, but this story is from that era of my life, so you're going to have to deal with teenage me for a little while. Every summer, my family would rent a house somewhere on the coast. My parents loved the ocean. My little brother Connor, who was 9 at the time, loved the ocean. I was 17 and thought the whole thing was beneath me. The year this happened, we went up to a lake house in northern Michigan instead of our usual beach trip. My parents wanted to try something different. Connor was thrilled. I acted like they had personally offended me. The house was actually incredible. I wouldn't have admitted that then, but I will now. It was this big old wooden place right at the edge of the tree line with a dock that went out over the water, completely secluded. The nearest town was about 15 minutes down a winding road. Beautiful in the way that places are beautiful when you're old enough to appreciate them. The property came with a caretaker, a guy named Roy who lived in a small separate cabin at the far end of the driveway. He was introduced to us when we arrived. Older guy, quiet, not unfriendly, but not warm either. He told my parents that he checked on the main house regularly and that if anything needed fixing, he was the person to call. He pointed to his cabin and said he was close by if anything came up. My parents thanked him, and that was essentially the last time any of us thought about Roy for the first 2 days. On the third morning, my parents decided to take Connor on a kayaking tour that one of the local outfitters was running. It was a 3-hour thing, and I wanted absolutely no part of it. After the usual back and forth, they left me alone at the house. My plan was to sit on the dock, listen to music, and text a girl I had just started talking to back home. Simple. I was out on the dock for maybe an hour when I decided to go back inside and grab something to eat. I went through the back, sliding door into the kitchen, made a sandwich, started walking back toward the dock. That's when I noticed the front door was open. Not wide open, just slightly, maybe 4 or 5 inches. I was almost certain I hadn't gone near the front door since we arrived. It faced a driveway, and there was nothing out there. I stood in the kitchen for a second just staring at it. Then I walked over and closed it, locked it, told myself the wind had pushed it open somehow, even though there wasn't much of a breeze. I went back to the dock, tried to shake it off. About 20 minutes later, I went back inside to use the bathroom. The hallway that led to the bedrooms had this old wooden floor that creaked with basically every step. As I was walking down it, I heard something from behind the door of my parents' bedroom. A soft sound, almost like shuffling, like weight shifting on the floor. I stopped walking. I stood in that hallway and I just listened. The house was silent except for whatever was happening behind that door. I told myself it was the house. Old houses make sounds. I almost believed it too. Then I heard it again, slower this time, deliberate. I did not open that door. I went straight back outside and sat on the dock and did not go back inside until I saw my dad's car coming up the driveway. When my family got back, I pulled my dad aside and told him what I heard. He gave me the usual skeptical dad look, but he still went and checked the bedroom. Everything looked fine. Bed was made. Windows were closed. Nothing out of place. But then he checked the closet. The folding closet door was partially open, and on the floor of the closet was a flannel shirt that did not belong to any of us. Dark green, worn looking, definitely not something either of my parents had packed. My dad's face changed when he saw it. He told my mom to take Connor out to the car. He checked every room, every closet, under the beds, in the bathrooms. He found nothing else. No one hiding anywhere. He came outside and walked straight to Roy's cabin. Roy answered the door, and my dad showed him a photo he'd taken of the shirt. Roy stared at it for a long moment, and then said he had no idea where it came from. He said he hadn't been inside the main house in over a week. My dad called the county sheriff's office, and 2 deputies came out. They walked the property and found something along the back tree line that nobody had noticed before. A small makeshift camp. A sleeping bag rolled up under a tarp that had been tied between 2 trees. Some empty food cans. Signs that someone had been staying out there for what looked like several days. They never found who it was. The deputies said it was possible someone had been using the property as a shelter while it sat empty between rentals. Roy said nothing had ever been disturbed before. The sheriff's office said they would monitor the area, but that was about all they could do. We stayed at a motel in town that night, and my parents debated the whole drive there whether to go home early or finish the trip. We ended up going home. My mom said she could not sleep in that house knowing someone had been inside it. I've thought a lot about what I heard in that hallway. The timing, the fact that I didn't go in there. I don't know what would have happened if I had. Maybe nothing. Maybe that person was just hiding and waiting for the house to empty out again. Or maybe something else entirely. I try not to think too hard about the alternative. Every year my family does a big group vacation with my aunt and uncle and their kids on my dad's side. There are usually about 12 of us total, and we rotate locations. The year this story takes place, we rented a big house in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. 7 bedrooms, right on the beach. The kind of place that's incredible in photos and just as good in person. My cousin Reese is the same age as me. We're basically the same person in different bodies. Same humor, same interests, same tendency to get ourselves into situations we have no business being in. On family trips, we were inseparable. We were in our mid-20s at this point, and the deal on these family vacations was simple. Days with the family. Nights doing whatever we wanted, as long as we were smart about it. Reese always had a plan. This particular night, the plan was to walk to a beach bar about a mile down the strip. The walk down was great. The night was warm, and it was the kind of beach night that makes you feel like everything in your life is fine. We had a good time at the bar. Nothing crazy. Just drinks and music, and the usual people watching that comes with vacation crowds. On the walk back is where things went sideways. We were maybe halfway back to the house when we cut through a beach access path between 2 properties to get back to the shoreline. It was darker through there. No streetlights, just the ambient glow from the houses on either side. We were talking and not paying much attention to our surroundings. That's when Reese grabbed my arm and stopped walking. Before I could ask why, she hushed me. And then I heard it. Somewhere ahead of us, close to where the path opened back up to the beach, there were voices. Not talking, not laughing. It was more like arguing. Urgent, low. The kind of voices people use when they don't want to be heard, but emotions are running too hot to stay fully quiet. We stood still and listened. We couldn't make out specific words, but the tone was unmistakable. Then the voices stopped all at once. Complete silence. Then something moved fast through the dune grass about 30 feet to our left. Just a shape, low and quick. Gone before either of us could fully process what we saw. Neither of us spoke for a solid 10 seconds. We got out of that path fast and walked the rest of the way on the road instead of the beach. When we got back to the house, we tried to piece together what we had actually seen and heard. Reese was convinced it was just a couple fighting. I wasn't so sure about the thing that moved through the grass. The next morning, Reese wanted to go back and look at the area in daylight. I agree because I am apparently incapable of leaving things alone. We found the path again easily. In the daylight, it looked completely unthreatening. Just a sandy path through overgrown beach grass. But when we got to the spot where we'd stopped the night before we found something in the sand just off the edge of the path, there were several sets of footprints, some going in different directions, and a phone, face down, half buried in the sand. Reese picked it up. The screen was shattered. The back cover was cracked and bent in a way that looked like it had been stepped on or thrown. When she turned it over, the screen flickered once and then went dark. We looked at each other for a long second. We walked that phone straight to the nearest lifeguard station and told them what we'd found and where. The lifeguard on duty made a call. We gave a short statement to a county officer who showed up about 20 minutes later. He took the phone and our contact information and told us someone would be in touch if needed. Nobody ever contacted us. I've looked into it a few times over the years. I never found anything that seemed to match what we found that night. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was exactly what Reese said. Just a bad night between 2 people and a phone that got smashed in the middle of it. But I still think about the thing that moved through the grass. And I still don't have an explanation for that part. This last one is mine. Not a family trip. Just me and my girlfriend at the time, a woman I'll call Priya, on our first real vacation together as a couple. We'd been together for about 8 months, and we decided to do a long weekend in Savannah, Georgia. Neither of us had been there before. We booked a room in a small and right in the historic district and flew down on a Thursday morning. Savannah is one of those cities that has its own personality. Spanish moss everywhere, old squares, buildings that look like they've been holding on to secrets for 200 years. We loved it immediately. On our second evening, there we went out for dinner and then just wandered. That's the best way to see Savannah. You just walk and let the city show you things. At some point, we ended up near one of the smaller squares, and there was a couple sitting on a bench across from us. We noticed them because they were both staring in our direction, not glancing, staring. I did that thing where you pretend not to notice and then check again a few seconds later, hoping you were wrong. I was not wrong. Both of them, a man and a woman probably around our age, were watching us with the kind of focused attention that doesn't happen by accident. Priya noticed too. She leaned over and told me quietly that they had been watching us since we came around the corner. She had clocked them before I did. We kept walking. When I looked back on the next block, they were both standing now, still facing our direction. We didn't think too much of it. Chalked it up to one of those unexplainable things that happen in busy tourist areas. Went back to the inn and had a normal night. The next afternoon, we were at a rooftop bar a few streets over. Beautiful day. We were there for maybe 45 minutes when Priya went stood beside me and said, "Don't react, but look to your left." It was the same couple from the square the night before, sitting at a table across the rooftop, not looking at menus, not talking to each other, looking at us. I felt the hairs on my arms stand up. There was something about seeing them a second time, in a completely different part of the city, that crossed a line from weird into something I couldn't rationalize away. Priya wanted to leave immediately, and I agreed. We paid and walked out. On the way down the stairs, I looked back once. The man was on his phone. He wasn't looking at us anymore. The woman was gone. That's all for tonight. If you have a story you want to share, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Sleep well. Or try to. Anyway,